Then in which he mentions that Baba has given permission to Grant to come to Meherazad again to examine him on the 30th. 30th was a Thursday, Friday was the last day. So 30th Baba has asked Grant to come, and Meherji was to bring him along. And then in a PS he writes that Meherwan Baba gives you permission to come to Meherazad whenever you are free, and Baba has no objection to your coming here. Then Meherji came because he had gone with Grant in one of the previous visits, and he told me that, look, when I went last, Baba has told me that next time when I accompany Grant, he was to bring me to Meherazad also. So you have to come. So I tell Meherji, no Meherji, I think I won't come. And he says, why? So I said, I feel that it will be a great strain on Baba. If I go there, his condition is so weak, and he'll have to talk to me or something, and why give him that needless bother? So I won't come. But I regretted that decision till today. Because I never knew what was to follow, Because what happened was then Meherji and Grant and all did go on the 30th, and the first thing Baba asked Meherji was, did you bring Meherwan? The sign for me was this.
What is that sign?
Small, so the younger
little brother,
little brother of his.
Yeah.
Did you bring him along? So Meherji said,
in that room,
not the seclusion cabin, there was no shade or anything outside, there was no veranda. So it was all open, and he would sit out there and keep watch. So one night he's keeping watch there, and he suddenly sees a snake, little snake coming along, slithering by and starting to enter the slit under the door. It was a tiny little snake. So Erich was ordered not to move or not to make any disturbance. Now what to do? The snake's going inside.
Was it poisonous kind?
He couldn't make out, So he had his torch, So he just put it on the tail. A major part of the snake had passed in. So he put that torch, and when its tail got stuck there, it started to slowly turn around. In the meantime, Baba clapped. Now Erich, the order to Erich was, as soon as Baba clapped, that he should go inside. But now if he went inside, the snake would get released and get inside. So he tarried a few seconds. When the snake finally emerged out, he bashed its head and then entered inside. And Baba was clapping away furiously, and then when he went in, he told Erich, what kept you waiting? Didn't you hear my clapping? So he said, yes Baba, but this is what happened, so it delayed. So what if the snake was there, he said. Wasn't my order more important than your... So he had the concern for Baba's body, in case the snake went inside and would cause some harm to Baba's body. So it was always a conflict between the order and our reason, playing this sort of a game, So, well, that is how it is.
It really strikes me, all those years with Baba, with all the humanness that he would exhibit, and yet the smallest little thing, one had to always have infinite attentiveness to.
Yeah, that's true.
It'd be so easy just to forget that in the course of...
The slightest slackness hurt him, So that is what he always stressed, that to love him means what? To be extremely attentive to his slightest wish. And that would divert our attention from our own self to him. And that is the real meditation. Constant concentration on Baba's wishes, which is called spontaneous meditation. Yeah. So that was the meditation all lifelong for the Mandli. Yeah. That they didn't have to undergo any sort of discipline or meditation or sadhana or anything. This was the main thing, to be concentrated upon Baba all 24 hours of their lives. Yeah. And Baba had to take such great pains to see that they did that. Yeah. So it was a game that he had to play, and take great pains for us. So I missed that opportunity of a lifetime to be with him again, and I didn't go. And so 30th went and passed.
Had you been getting news of Baba's? How frequently would you get communications from Mirzad?
Well, Leeraj would write a daily report of Baba's condition, but unfortunately I had never kept those letters. But just the last few of them somehow got preserved, so I have them. But all the rest was destroyed. So, but he was constantly informing me what was happening. So, unfortunately, I didn't keep all that.
So you were very well informed of what was happening.
Yeah. Very often medicines would be called for, and I would have to rush and send them here by the earliest conveyance possible for Baba.
Others, like in Pune, wanted to know about Baba's condition.
Konache? Just a minute, the phone has arrived. Would you put it off? Yeah. Yes, so as I was saying that we now come on to the last day, and that is 1969 in the afternoon, that the phone rings and I was called on the phone, and Meherji's daughter Parveen was on the line, and she said that she's just received word from Adi's office that Baba has passed away. When I heard that, I just couldn't make out what she was saying. So I asked her to repeat what she was saying, and she said, yes, that's what I heard, that Baba has passed away this afternoon, and that they have taken Baba's body to Meherabad for being put into the tomb there. So that is the news that I have received. So it was a sort of stunned silence. I didn't know how to respond to that news, and I just put down the phone and went out of the office to collect my thoughts. I didn't know what next to do. And the message was that I should try to give this information out to the Pune people as much as possible. So then, collecting my thoughts, first I went to my boss and I told him that such a thing has happened, I've got this news and I have to go, so please allow me leave for a few days. I cannot tell you how many days it will be. So he was quite sympathetic and said, you can go right away and have no fear about anything here. That was the good part of my job at that time. So I was quite dispensable at the office. Yeah, so so I didn't know where to go first, and then suddenly Baba's house was closest to my office. So it was just about a couple of minutes cycling distance. So I rushed down there and entered Baba house, and there was nobody there. In the back room, Behram was sitting there all alone by himself. And I just went there, and Behram said, "Yes, what is it?" And I said, I just blurted this out. I didn't know what to say, and I just said, "Baba has dropped his body, he has passed away." The news was such a shock to Behram that he began to bang his head with his hands and started to weep loudly and caused me to cry there. Didn't know what to do. Then I just tried to console Behram as much as possible. I said, "Look, you must be brave now, and the thing is that we all have to do something. We have to get prepared and get ready and go to Nagar as soon as possible. So collect yourself and try to think about going to Nagar as quickly as possible." So saying, then I had to leave to carry the messages elsewhere. And so for another close house was Vilu house. That's my cousin Roshan and Dadi, who had recently returned from America after having his doctorate there. So he was there, and so I wanted to go and give the message there. So while I'm going there, I meet Behram's wife Parin on just near Vilu house. So this time I was a little discreet. So I told Parin, "Come, I have to give you some important message." So she follows me, and we enter Vilu house. Then we go in. Roshan was there, and then in a rather gentle way I just broke the news that, "Look, a phone message has come that Baba was not feeling very well last few days," and just prolonged it a bit, and then said, "Baba has now passed away." They were all stunned to hear this again. So I said, "Now look, we all have to get ready to leave for Nagar, so you all get prepared and be practical about the whole thing." And so saying, then I left Vilu house and went home. Then I don't know whether from the office or from home, then I went. First I went home, and then of course went, and then Mama and Manu were there. They were surprised to see me back so soon from office. So I said, "I have to tell you something," and then I took them inside and very gently tried to break this news. And they couldn't just believe what had happened. And Mama was distraught, Manu was totally dumbfounded. Yes, it was something which no one had expected. So then Mama and Manu started to just move here and there without any purpose. They went to Baba's photo and started to pray, and I said, "Look, now you all be a little practical. We have to leave as early as possible. Start collecting your belongings and pack up, because we have to leave early, because Baba's body has to be interred the next day." That was, I think, the message that was sent out first, which caused a lot of confusion later. So, in the meantime, when Parvin's phone came, I asked, "Where is your dad, Meherji?" So what she told me was that he returned from Meherazad yesterday and has left for Bombay, and he's going to fly to Delhi. So we are not expecting him back soon. So I was dismayed at all this. And so now the next thing was that Pune center had to be informed. So I don't know how I did that. I think I must have phoned or something and informed Ramakrishna what had happened. And then Ramakrishna and Jalbhai Baba's other brother, they both came to Bindra house while we were there. So they wanted to know what happened, and I said, this is all the message that I have received, and that anybody who came should go to Meherabad. That's the information. And you all should now make ready to go soon. And so saying, they left. Then there was a phone call from me. The landlady, Mrs. Bindra, sent her servant that some phone has come. So I rushed up. She used to stay upstairs. So I went there, and Meherji was on the line. So I said, where are you phoning me from? He says, from home. I said, you didn't go to Delhi? So he says, no, I had a sort of a premonition not to go to Delhi, not to fly, and I just thought of coming back, and I took the first train and came back. And you see, he had this little premonition, yeah. So he was there, and he says, look, I'm going now to Nagar, and you all be ready. I'll be coming there in about an hour's time. So get packed and be ready, and I'll pick the three of you from Bindra house. So then I rushed down and told Mama, Manu, get ready quick, see this has happened, and now Meherji will be coming, so let's get ready. So we just threw in some spare clothing and some daily necessities of life or whatever, and were packed up and locked the house. In the meantime, while this was going on, Minu Bharucha, our electrician, he had come from Nasik. He used to stay at his house there on Mahatma Gandhi Road. So he came for a visit to Bindra house just at that time. So we told him what had happened. So he says, I've got a car and I can also give some of you a lift there. So I said, look, my cousins are there, Dadi, Roshan, the kids, Mehra, Dolly and all. So can you give them a lift? So he says, oh yes, most willingly I'll take them. So they came in Minu's car. It was an very old time car, and they had trouble coming on the way, but somehow they made it also. And Mama, myself, Manu, Meherji and his daughter Parvin, we all left in Meherji's car. And it was about, I think, 7:30 in the evening, and we all locked up Bindra house and left for Nagar. And yes, it was a journey in the darkness, and there was darkness within and darkness outside. Yes, Meherji kept saying, what has Baba done? What is this he has done? He was also taken totally by surprise. So we said nothing, just went on like that. Mama and Manu were quietly sobbing at the back. They were disconsolate. Well, nothing could be done. So it was just going on like that. We were driving on, and I think we reached Meherabad at about 10 or 10:30 in the night. And I went first to Lower Meherabad, Mandli Hall there. It was all very dark. In those days there was no electric lights or anything. So Padri was there, and he came with a little lantern, and he told us what had happened. We asked about the details, and he gave us a brief idea of what happened on the last day. And what had happened was that Padri was also called, I think on the last day or a day before that. And so all the Mandali were with Baba on that day. And Erich also had written a letter which we received later when we went back to Bindra house. Some letters of Erich were lying on the floor, and the postman had shoved it through the window. So I have those letters with me here. Yeah. So we are at, so Padri is telling us that Baba was very restless, and he was having these jerks all the while, the slightest movement, and Baba's body would have these terrible jerks and the body would actually go up from several inches above the bed, and they would have to hold him down. Several of the Mandali would have to hold him down. Yeah. And then Baba asked for some homeopathic medicine, and Padri gave him some medicine, and it seems that just before Baba passed away, he joked that your homeopathy medicine is no good or something like that. Yeah. So then he told us how when Baba had this big final jerk, and then just he stopped breathing, and Erich then tried to give him artificial respiration or resuscitation, and was just doing it for a long time until he himself collapsed on the floor. Yeah, but he couldn't revive Baba at that time. So he gave us in brief all what had happened then. Then we went up the hill. We could hear the sound of a drum while we were down there. Otherwise it was all dark, no movement. Just, I remember there was a soft moonlight because it was the full moon night at that time. So luckily, because there was no light anywhere, the moonlight was there, which was a great help for at least a week of our stay there. And when we went up, it was all very dark, and no one was there except my aunt was there, Banumasi, and my cousin Meru Mehta. So they were sitting on that. There was a platform just at the side of the tomb, which was later demolished. Unfortunately, that was removed, but that was there at that time.
Where cabins had been, or
isolation. Yeah, the backside were the 5 or 6 cabins were there, and in front was this little platform, all the length of the tomb, and a little this side. So that was the only place one could sit upon there. There was none of that Sabha Mandap or anything. It was all open. Yeah. Hardly any trees also at that time. It was all quite barren. Yeah. So we were among the very first to arrive from outstation, and there was my aunt, and then I think Chagan Master was there, or 1 or 2 people were there, and then they brought a lantern and took us into the tomb, and there in the dim light was Baba's body kept in the crypt. and we could just make out Baba's features. Only his face was there. The rest was all wrapped up in cloth and shawls and all that. And Baba's face was just left open. And it looked as if he was in a deep sleep, and a very far away look on his face. Very serene and very, very fresh looking. But yeah, so we could make that out, barely make it out with the light. So we had darshan of Baba there for some time. Then we went out. There was nothing that we could do at the time. So
were like Mera there?
Nobody was there. They had all come. Later we learned that Airaj persuaded the women to leave the place and come back to Meherazad. Very reluctantly they agreed, because Airaj thought that was necessary to sort of give them a little break from the day's events. And so he brought them back here, and they spent the night at Meherazad. So nobody was there except a few of the others. Mansari was there, of course. So then I think my mother and Manu stayed with Mansari or what, I don't remember now, or whether they were sent to Akbar Press. But I remember I and Meherji went downhill, and the Padri gave us a mattress in the Mandli hall, and we just lay there, biding our time. It was all very dark and there was nothing. Yeah, and I remember that there was a lone singer there. I forget his name now.
Up on the hill, you mean?
Yeah, up on the hill. And he had composed a long sort of song on Baba's life. Mehrachi Mera Badam. I think you might have heard it.
Mehrachi Mera Badam.
Mehrachi Mera Badam. That was the recurring line that he would sing. That means Baba's Meherabad, Baba's Meherabad. Yeah. So, and it was a very sort of sad tune he was singing, and that was adding to our misery, as it were. Yeah. And there was a solitary fellow on the drum accompanying him, and with the harmonium. He was the only accompaniment of music there, in this lonely, desolate place at that time. Yeah, I'm just giving you an atmosphere of how it was at that night. Yeah, there was nobody there.
It must have been just a completely desolate feeling.
Yeah, yeah, as if our whole life had ended, as it were. Anyway, so we went down and we just lay there, and early in the morning we woke up and climbed back up the hill, and then it was morning time, and at about 8 o'clock or so, I think, the Manli came back, Airaj and the women and a few others, and then of course they went into the tomb and did Baba's prayer and Aarti. We could see the anguish on the faces of the women. Meera was totally disconsolate, yeah. And Mani was supporting her and giving her encouragement to bear the ordeal.
Yeah, there's a film of some of this, and Meera just looks like the very personification of grief.
Yeah. Yeah. She was devastated, there was no question about it. Anyway, so then after they came out, then they were in the room there, in the east room. And a little time later, people gathered along, and then there was talk about covering Baba's body, because Ginde had come on that day, Ginde had been called also, and Grant was also asked to come back. So Ginde, when he received the message that Baba wanted to see him, he started from Bombay early in the morning and went to Grant's clinic to meet with him. And Baba was constantly asking, has Ram arrived? Has Ram arrived? His name was Ram Ginde. And Baba just wanted that he should examine him. Ginde should examine him. So Baba was waiting for him. And here Ginde, this Grant kept him waiting there. He said, what's the hurry now? When I went there, Baba himself said his time has come, and I think he will very soon pass away. This is what Grant tells Ginde. And Ginde was very disturbed about this. He said, I was a fool to go and visit him because I wasted so much time there. I never knew what the situation here was, and I should have not gone there. That's what he told us later. And when he came to Meherwan, that trust compound, he suddenly felt a great urge to pass a motion. And he said that he had a heart attack then, his second major heart attack, So, despite that, he knew he was having an attack. So, but his love for Baba was so great that he quickly passed the motion that he felt like having the urge. And he said he quickly came and he arrived just after Baba passed away. So he regretted that delay that happened at Pune. So when Ginde was asked about whether they could keep the body, so Ginde's opinion was that medically Baba's condition was such that he would not think it advisable to postpone interment of Baba's body for more than a few hours. So he said that the body should be covered up very soon. So the Mandali were preparing to do that. In the meantime, Sarosh arrived. Sarosh was this hefty, big person, blustering type, And when he heard what was going on, and he started to shout, he says, look, the doctors have had their day. Now that Baba has dropped his body, the body is the possession of the trustees. The Avatar Mai Baba trust has come into functioning, and now nobody has any say about it. We are going to decide what to do. So we won't listen to what the doctor has to say. And he was quite emphatic about it. So he was very upset that Eraj just straight away brought the body to Meherabad. He wanted that Baba's body should be taken in a procession from the streets of Nagar, and the people should have his darshan. But Eraj never liked the idea of taking Baba around like that, his body exposed in that way. But Sarosh didn't like that at all. So he said that, look, you have deprived thousands of people the last sight of Baba, and I will not allow this to happen. And come what may, I am not allowing you people to cover up Baba's body, and we will decide later what happens. Let us see.
Suresh was a trustee himself.
Yeah, he was one of the original trustees. So he says, if something happens, it's going to be my responsibility. And let the people have Baba's darshan as much as possible. So the women were told this, and they also felt a little good about it. They would want to be with Baba as much as possible too. So then it was agreed that the interment should be deferred at least for another day. So then the crowds began to come as the day wore on, and the news spread that Baba's body was lying there, open for darshan, and all of Arangaon was there, a huge crowd, milling crowds, and there was so much heat during the day. In the night it was quite cold and chilly. There was a cold wind when we were there in the night, and it would send shivers in us. It was particularly cold that winter. Yeah, I remember. But during the daytime, with the clear sun shining above, it was quite hot and dusty and dry. And despite all that and the milling crowds, Baba's face remained as fresh as anything, as if it was a freshly plucked rose was there here. So fresh and nice Baba's face looked, as if Baba was just in a deep sleep with his eyelids closed, but a sort of a very distant, there was some great distance, a sort of feeling I could get that Baba was way in the distance, as it were. Yes, so this darshan went on and on and on, and the next day also. And in the meantime, in Adi's office, phone was ringing throughout the day and night, as it were. Phone calls coming from all over India and all over the world, asking what was happening, when was the interment, whether they should come. So nobody could give any reply, because nothing seemed to be decided,
A telegram had said that his body would be interred on February 1st, I think.
And that was the next day, yeah. So that was causing all the confusion for outstation people. So, despite that, many people just came, whether they would get the sight of their beloved or not, let's go. And so they listened to the dictates of their heart, and they were rewarded by his darshan, while the others who listened to their reasoning thought, what was the sense in going now, that would be all closed. So they lost the opportunity. Yeah. So yes, so the next day also Baba's face was as fresh as ever, and so again it was decided to continue with the darshan.
It was all being kept in ice at this point?
Yes, there were blocks of ice just on the sides, that's all. On the sides were blocks of ice, and Baba's body was kept on a sort of an incline. And it reminded us about what Baba had said earlier, when he was bent upon giving the great darshan, and Iraj would say, Baba, why do you want to do all this 2 months darshan? How could you be able to do it with this condition of your health? And Baba would ask Francis, supposing if my health is very bad and I just give darshan reclining on a bed, will my lovers mind my doing so? So Francis would say loudly, no, Baba, I do not think it would be so. On the contrary, they would feel it a great privilege that you have allowed them to have your darshan despite your weak condition or something. So Baba would tell Iraj, listen what he said. And then he would say, supposing if I give darshan reclining, and with my eyes closed, will my lovers mind that? And Francis would again say, no, Baba. On the contrary, it would be a still greater privilege for them that in this condition also you allowed them to have darshan. So Baba would say, listen, now you carry on with your preparations for holding the darshan. And it's my job to give the darshan.
And no one guessed what he was...
Yeah, look what he was telling us. All so clearly now. And here body was really reclining, his head was a little raised so that people could see, and his eyes were closed. So all these casual remarks, then they come to life later, and we realize what he was saying was not just so many words. And despite this, there were this ever-increasing crowds wanting to have Baba's darshan. Yes, this is what they want to see. Yeah. And they weren't minding this, That's what Baba was asking, whether they would mind seeing me lying like this and want to have my darshan. And yes, they did want to have his darshan. So much so that people from the West rushed, some of them came, So there was, as far as I remember, Rick Chapman was there and Alan Cohen. They suddenly just decided to come, and they came. I think on the third or fourth day they were here. I don't know how they managed it. And Dr. Kenmore, of course, the irrepressible Dr. Kenmore, he was there. And
Adi and Delia came.
Yeah, then Don Stevens was there. Don Stevens, Adi and Delia, as you said, they were there. I wonder who else was there. Yeah, quite a few Westerners were there.
A lot of Baba's lovers from around India. Where were these crowds? Were they largely villagers from nearby?
Yeah, mainly nearby. Nagar, nearby stations. And as the people came to know that darshan is continuing, then people from outstations were pouring in. So from the north and from the south side. On the third or fourth day, a big group from Andhra came. And when they saw that there was no electricity and it would be dark in the night, so they went rushing to Nagar somewhere and somehow got a couple of generators there. So the first time we had electricity up the hill, first ever electricity, yeah.
The original MRTV.
Yeah, the last great darshan that Baba gave there. So they arranged for that, and there was absolutely no shelter. So somebody then thought of getting a little tent erected. So on the third or fourth day, a small little tent was erected there to give at least some shelter for the milling crowd standing in the sun there and wanting to have Baba's darshan. Yeah. And there were all sorts of scenes. Some people were so emotional that they would faint there and would have to be carried out. And then others were there, they were just wanting to be there in Baba's presence. And many Baba lovers, close ones, they just were floating around there, not knowing whether they should go back or what to do. It was all very uncertain, So, and day after day, Baba's face became more and more fresh looking. So much so on the fourth day, there was a glow and a radiance on Baba's face, which surprised everyone there. Yeah. And he looked so fresh. But after the fourth day or so, then slowly the body started to shrink, Yeah. But it was clear that there would never be any sort of deterioration or a condition which would require immediate covering of the body. That would never happen. So, if we had the courage, go on, Baba said. He is game to it. Yeah, that's how it was. So, it's a sort of a miracle that no physical body could have ever survived like that. Yeah, it was just blocks of ice on the sides, but nothing else that was there to. It was not, the body was not embalmed or nothing. So anything could have happened, but nothing happened. The body just stayed just intact like that, yeah. And of course, Eraj would have the queue stopped twice in a day, so that they would close the tomb and then have the whole thing cleaned up. Because of the dust and all, it would get all mucked up, the flowers and the dust and everything. And then Neeraj would go down into the crypt and rearrange the blocks of ice or whatever, and wipe Baba's face very gently and tenderly, and just generally attend to the tomb for some time, and then again open it for darshan.
When would the women come in? Would they come in at their own time?
Yeah, they would just keep coming and going, on and off. So it just, the darshan just went on and on and on, night and day. There was no break. Yeah.
People the whole time?
Whole time. There was not a time when there was no queue.
Wow.
Yeah. So, milling crowds all through those 7 days.
What would you be doing? Just whatever?
I would be minding the queue sometimes, as much as I could bear, Then the others would come and relieve me, and we would just hang around there. And then eventually the people got over their initial shock and the numbness that it had caused, and there was a feeling of sort of being in Baba's sahwas, and as if he was giving darshan to us. Yeah. So a different atmosphere started to build up as the days wore on. So
sort of a augury, things to come.
Things to come, yeah. And there would be bhajans, and there would be queues singing Baba's bhajans and all these songs. And there was a great atmosphere there, yeah, of a sort of a very loving atmosphere for love and reverence for Baba, building up there. So this was going on, and day after day, yes. So eventually it was evident that nothing would happen to Baba's body. But then it couldn't just go on like this. So it was thought that on 7th, it was Baba's birthday according to the Parsi calendar, on the 7th of February. And so they said that we should decide that 7th should be the day that we would cover Baba's body. And what indication was, that day also Baba had indicated, because when he was very weak and all that, so Baba would tell the Mandli that on my birthday I'll be very strong. So the Baba's birthday was on the 7th, and when that was a sort of indication that they felt that Baba had indicated that should be the day. Yeah. So this was then given out, and it was decided that on 7th the body should be interred. So the night before, we held a meeting of the few volunteers that were there, how to conduct the next day's proceedings, what would be the procedure. So it was decided that at 11 o'clock we would have to stop all darshan, and then the trustees, whoever were present, they would be there assembled, and some of the close Baba disciples and Mandali, and a box was prepared, a sort of plywood box, which had one face open. So it was decided just to lower that box. It was built correctly to dimensions so that it could get into the crypt and cover Baba's body from the top. That was it, yes. So no coffin or anything. And Baba's body was in contact with the earth at the bottom. They had removed, when a message was sent when Baba dropped his body to prepare the tomb there, and there was this farshi in the crypt. So Padri worked whole day to get out those farshi and to expose the earth below it. So when they laid Baba's body there, it was on the earth that it was laid. And then on top of that, this box would have to be placed. So that was decided, and then in the morning we had all planned how to arrange the crowds, where to keep them. They should be sitting there when the interment started. So all that was planned out, but Sarosh as usual was there, and he suddenly gave this order to stop darshan about half an hour earlier only. So many people were deprived of their last view of Baba. And then they started to do this little ceremony. Prayers were recited and aarti, and then this box was brought. There were ropes attached to it, so the people held on, and then it was gently lowered on Baba's body. And about noon time, Baba's body was covered on the seventh day. Yeah. And of course, the one thing I noticed was that all those days that Baba was giving darshan, people were bringing fresh roses for Baba. And that was the year that in Nagar there was a flood of this Persian rose, the Indian rose. It has a very delicate fragrance in it. Although it doesn't look very attractive, it's just a nice pink color, but the fragrance it has the best fragrance for a rose. And there was an abundant supply of these roses, as if the nature was wanting to adorn Baba's body towards the end. So never before and never after have we seen such a flood of roses in the Nagar market. Yeah, it was surprising. And people would bring basket loads of roses, and Baba's body would be all covered with roses. And his face also looked like
pink color.
Pink color. And then, of course, the last 2 days, the color began to fade here. So that was it on the seventh day. But after that box was lowered down, just when the darshan was stopped, suddenly we hear a car pull up, and there was Irwin and Edward rushing to the tomb. So the covering was held up. They came and had Baba's darshan. So they were the last two Westerners who could have Baba's last darshan, just in the nick of time. Yeah, had they come, I think about 10 minutes late, they would have missed everything. So their love was such that it brought them to Baba just in the nick of time. and they were there then. So these two Westerners were also there. And then of course body was covered. After that they all threw, each one threw one handful of soil on the box, and the queue was formed, and then they were all allowed to throw one handful of the soil. And very soon the whole crypt was totally full of soil, and right up it had formed a big heap. And by that time it was all over. Yeah. And another thing I remember was that Kaka Baria was also brought. So despite his mind not being very normal, he could realize that Baba had dropped his body and that this thing was being done. And he was sitting there before the tomb and never moved from that place from the morning till late in the afternoon. Yeah. And at the end of the day he was all covered with dust and flying up from the crypt, and he wouldn't move from that place. So when it was all over, then my aunt went there, and Banumasi was very close to Kaka Baria because they both stayed in Bombay, and he would come very often to her house and she would go there. So she then coaxed him to get up and go there and then get a wash and have some nourishment. Yeah.
Actually, Kaka did not live much longer.
Yeah, on the 21st or 22nd, I think.
Of that month?
Of the same month. He was sitting out there, you know that green reclining chair outside Falu's room. Falu's room was Kaka's room.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, at the end. So he was just sitting out there. And he had a big grudge against Sarosh, because he felt that Sarosh was the one who covered Baba's body and threw soil on it.
Oh.
So when there was a trust meeting that day, and the trustees arrived, you know, so Kaka got up and started to show his fist to Sarosh that I'm going to pound you if you come close to me.
What character.
Yeah. And then he went and sat on his chair and he just slumped there. And that was the end of Kaka. Yeah. So as if he was, his life was just being extended to give company to the Lord and give him some little amusement in towards the end. As Baba said, he was my toy. So he just was for the duration of Baba's lifetime, he was there, as it were, with 7 major heart attacks, mind you. So he passed away very soon thereafter. And then very soon thereafter, Don passed away. He had a major heart attack and just went off.
Was that was a surprise, right? There had
no
indications?
No indication. But he might be having, because there was some heart medicine lying in his room. So probably he must be having some angina or something which he never revealed to anybody. But he was very strong and athletic and quite active. It must have been his first major fatal heart attack. Yeah. And he just passed off like that, hale and hearty till the end.
And Baidul, Kaka's old enemy, also died soon, right?
Soon thereafter, I think. Yeah. Kaka had never wanted him to be in Mehrazad, you know. So towards the end, when a pit was dug here, as I said, Kaka got anxious that they were preparing to bury Baidul there. So for the first time, Kaka started to look after Baidul's nourishment. He would bring him some cookies, eat this, it will help you. The motive, the motive being that he shouldn't die here. Very funny little things he would do, And Baba would hear this and have a nice laugh. So, I think we are at the end of it. Jai Baba.